Welcome to the next edition of Paradigm Next and BizCast's EOS journey that we've been going through for the last several months. Today, we'll be talking with Dan Zawacki with Four Moores Group, who's also a certified EOS implementer. This was our second phase of our journey, with the first one being the initial focus day. Yep. And we jumped in right now into vision building day one, and we learned a tremendous amount about our operation, about our business, about the direction in which we want to go. We can now, being a couple of weeks out from the vision building day one, we could report back on what impact it's had on our business. And I can say it's had tremendous impact, and I'll get into that a little bit later. But right now, I'll let Dan introduce himself and talk a little bit about what vision building day one actually covers. And then we'll get into the details. So Dan, without further ado, take it away.
All right. Well, thanks, Anatoly. So yes, we finished our focus day in the beginning, and then we went to our vision building day one. And boy, I'll tell you what, that certainly was a great vision day building one. And the whole process is the Entrepreneur Operating System. It's a process that Gino Wickman has developed. And as you said, I'm Dan Zawacki. I am certified implementer. It's not my side job. This is what I do. I love it. And what it's all about is helping business owners and their leadership teams get what they want from their businesses. And that's what gets me up in the morning, and that's what I love to do. So we had a really productive vision building day one, where we learned about what the core values of your organization was. And you had a few core values, and you were kind of like, well, we have our own core values already. Do we really need to go over this? And I said, yes, we do. It's part of the process. And it is either going to validate your core values that you have, or we might tweak them, or in my experience, sometimes we've just actually got rid of every core value and we build core values. And so I guess the starting point is to really explain what real core values are, and not bullshit core values, the BS core values that so many companies have. And what I mean by that is the core values are at the heart and soul of the entrepreneur and their leadership team, right? You can't make it up. It's not where you go to this seminar, hire this core values consultant person or whatever, and they just make up a bunch of core values because they look really good on your website or in a brochure. And those, it's just not the way it works. And your core values are what gets you up in the morning to do what you do. And it's a really great exercise that we went through, and I'm sure you'll explain about it. And what is really great is once we nailed the core values, and I felt we really nailed the core values for your organization. And that was really a great feeling. And I'm sure you'll talk about what those core values are, but they really do fit your organization, and it's not something you just made up, sat around. And what you don't do with your core values is you just send an email out to everyone in your company and say, what are our core values, right? That's not how it works. Core values come from the owners and the leadership team. And I keep pointing to my heart because they are literally come from the soul of your organization. So defining core values, it's 3 to 5, maybe 6 values that you want to surround yourself with, these kind of people that have your core values. And you want to hire people, you want to reward people, and ultimately these are the values that you need to let go of people that they don't fit. Because the whole thing is literally at EOS, the center is having great core values. And during Vision Day Building 1 and Vision Day Building 2, you can see behind me here, that we call them the 8 questions. And the 8 questions is literally what every business owner must go through. And we have the vision traction organizer that lists, what these questions are. And it's literally a 2-page strategic document that you can take everything on where you're going, how you're going to get there, and all that. And it's a roadmap. And most people, they write this 200-page document if they want to borrow some money and that, and everybody knows, all the bankers and all the private equity firms, that most of it's all cut and pasted from Google anyways. So this really is true work that we do together. And quite frankly, a lot of PE firms that I know are wanting people to use this because they know that they have their act together if you can do this and not put all this fluff into it. And so Vision Day Building 1 and Vision Day Building 2 are these 8 questions. And they go, what are your core values, which I just explained? What's your core focus? What is our 10-year target? And we're going to explain all these as we go through the seminar. What's our marketing strategy? What's our 3-year picture? Notice the word picture. What's our 1-year plan? What are we going to do? What are our rocks? And what are our issues? Because issues are blocking progress that just, you can't move the organization forward. So to go back to what we did in Vision Day Building 1, of course, we revisited all the focus day tools. And then we came up with our core values. And then we came up with the core focus for the organization. And a lot of people, they think, oh, core focus, right? That's really what you do better than anybody else. And we had some really big lights come off in the room when we came up with core focus. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts after that. But your core focus is 2 things. It's whatever your purpose, your cause, or your passion in life with your business. And then we combine that with the niche, right? So it kind of makes it just a little smaller, right? Because if you're everything to everybody, you will fail, unless, of course, you're Amazon. And, of course, they had like extra $600 billion to lose. So
they tested out the whole book selling thing first and made sure that they got that down before getting too far ahead of themselves.
That's very true. And so we go through this great exercise on really defining your core focus, which consists of the 2 things I said. What's your purpose, your cause, your passion, and what's your niche? And so usually we go up to the 10-year target in our Vision Day Building 1. And we just were rocking and rolling on our core values and core focus. We did not get to that, but we will get to that in a couple weeks.
Definitely looking forward to that. And I mean, and it was a marathon session that day regardless, but especially considering the change of pace from kind of the times we're in now, and then walking into this, I think it took us about 8.5 hours to get through what we needed, one step shy of what we needed to get through. It was a real marathon session. But like I mentioned during our first webinar, is I read the book a few months back, or several months back, and I tried to self-implement a lot of these things. And something that I learned right now after having separation of that focus day and the vision building day 1 and day 2 is how perfected the system really is that in marketing and advertising, the phrase that's often used is the velocity of spend is oftentimes more important than the absolute dollar spent. So making sure that you time it right is even more important than just purely throwing something at it. And that timing, I think the system really prepares you for that timing, because when I was trying to self-implement, I took the pieces that I thought would be the easiest to address right away, kind of wrote them down and tried to implement them. Not enough thought went into it, and we'll get to that in a second. But more importantly was the timing, is that we simply weren't prepared to bring in our values or our focus until we had an internal structure of asking the right questions, of meeting, of addressing them, of being able to, okay, now we have these values, what do we do with them? And what would normally happen is we have them, and the what do we do with them question is now left for some indefinite future date. But by having a process in place already for how to implement stuff, of how to add it as an issue or add it as a rock and know that it's something that we have to do, having a process by which we discussed it. So having all those L10 components that we covered in the focus day made the vision building day that much more relevant, because as we were talking about it wasn't fluff. We knew that we're going to have to stand behind and do something with what was discussed. So simply stating, our values are, we have integrity, we always do what we say.
Oh, I hate that one.
and those are the mainstays. Those are the mainstays because those are the ones you know how to implement. Those are easy. There's no implementation. We're going to continue saying that we don't lie to our customers. That one is easy to implement. But actually having some insight and actually being able to stand behind these things, with our core values, once we implemented them, we went through a worksheet. We graded ourselves first to see which values we actually live up to. And there was a disconnect. There was an internal disconnect between my partner and I. There were some where she really shined, and there were some where I really shined, but neither one of us exhibited all of them. So we were able to raise that question of what do we need to do to make sure that we are who we want to be. So when we implemented these, we had some people which didn't connect on our core values. And those problems were there before, just they're problems we couldn't identify and couldn't address because the work was sort of fine. Everything was okay, but there was a disconnect somewhere along the way. Then with others, they saw they saw that we were intentional, that we were purposeful, that we're actually implementing. It's not another meeting that we have and we announce our plans for this year, and in more likely than not, they're not going to hear anything about this plan until next year again. So a lot of this was kind of lost. But once we came out and we said, this is who we are, this is where we're going, and this is who we have to be to get there, the people that understood why that was important stepped up and changed certain things and are becoming a much more integral part of the team. There's one team member specifically which was great at executing. He did his job flawlessly, but he was never a true part of the team. He couldn't contribute because he didn't see things eye to eye with us. Mm-hmm. In the last month, this person is now involved in all of our meetings, in our planning, in our client kickoffs, because of just how well aligned we've become. And I think we took a temporary relationship, a vendor relationship, and I think that this has turned into a long-term partnership strictly because we were able to align so well. And what us to do this, besides raising the questions of what those values are, but it's also the people analyzer that we went through to analyze first the most difficult one, which was ourselves, and then everyone else. So if you could kind of cover the people analyzer from a implementer and professional standpoint, that would be great.
Yeah, well, the people analyzer is one of those EOS tools that we have in our toolbox, and there's about 30 some different tools, and it's a very simple tool. And that's what's so great about EOS. It's simple, practical tools, but it's pretty hard to do, especially on your own, right? As you try it. But the people analyzer literally takes the core values that we develop, and then, and this is interesting, and I put them on the board, I make a little diagram, I put the core values on there, and then I put the people on the leadership team's names on there, and then in a real-time interview, it's do they exhibit the core values? Most of the time, they get a plus. If they do it most of the time, yes. Sometimes no, plus minus. If they never do it, they get a minus. And so what we decided to do is we had, I believe it was 5 core values, and we decided to make what we call the bar. Right? So this is the minimal acceptable level that somebody can get into the organization, or they have to be at that or above it. And we came up with 3 pluses someone had to have and 2 plus minuses, but no minuses. And so then we analyzed your best people, and they were all pluses. And then we analyzed, say, the not so good people, and it was truly eye-opening, I think, for both you all to see that, whoa, that's what is not letting these people do the job they need to do. And so that's what the people analyzer does. And it really, and tell me what you think, but it really takes the subjectiveness out of really analyzing people, and it really makes it objective. You either fit or you don't. And that's what I think is so great about the people analyzer.
And being able to communicate that to people for them to understand what they're being graded on. So, I mean, during the interview process, there's not much analysis yet. I mean, we're analyzing them who they are, but they don't need to change for the interview. It's either they fit the culture or they don't. Where I found the people analyzer to be great, multiple kind of facets of it. First of all, looking inwards and realizing that I myself am not great at all of our values, and realizing where I had to step up. And also realizing why my partner and I work so well together. It's because wherever I had a plus, minus, or a minus, she was a strong plus, and vice versa. So I guess getting that understanding was great. Using the people analyzer when hiring is great, because you're able to gauge the people and see if they will be a fit. But I think what's even more important, not everybody has a chance to start a brand new team, go out and hire a new team that fits within those values. But it's a question of how do you identify who on your team does and doesn't, but more importantly, how do you communicate to your team on what your team needs to be, and then who they need to be a great, cultural fit, which is an overall fit, because a culture fit is just how you fit into organization, how you're able to deliver collectively and work as a team. And I think being able to voice those core values and the logic behind them and how they play into our organization, and even conceding some of our own weaknesses, I think really opened up that conversation and allowed people to really step up and see where they're lacking. It wasn't a review, it wasn't a criticism. It was that same self-assessment that we went through, kind of having them do that same self-assessment. And you know what? Then everybody suddenly saw exactly what and I can't even say they're problems. They might not be problems in another organization, but they got to see exactly where that misalignment was with us. So right now we have a very well-aligned team that's all rowing in the same direction, that knows how we're going to get there, where we're going. And I think that's really been the result of understanding the values and understanding the focus and understanding how those values are going to help us focus on what we need to focus on. One of the other exercises that we went through is the GWC principle, and kind of if you could expand on that a little bit.
So one of the things that EOS teaches us, as we talked last time and during the focus day, was right people in the right seats, right? Famous quote, Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great, okay? So right people are people that are great people that fit your core values. And what is great at your organization might be different than at Lobstergram or my other client's organization. And so EOS adapts itself to each unique organization. So what a great person in your organization may not necessarily be great somewhere else. So each organization defines what is great. And we do that by the right people have our core values, right? And we grade them using a people analyzer. Now, what you just mentioned was the GWC, what we call it. G stands for get it, that they absolutely get that role, that job. And W is they want it, right? You just can't pay them, an extra $10, $20, $30,000 a year. They want to do that job. And the C is they have the capacity to do that job, right? They have the God-given talents. They also have the capacity. And capacity also could go into timing too, right? If you're in too many roles, you might not have enough time. So you have to have the time fits in there too. So that's how we get the right seats, as we talked about earlier with the accountability chart. So when you could see that you have to start at the focus day, those tools, the accountability chart, where we went in, that was like the first thing we talked about. And then now with Vision Day Building 1, you see how the vision and getting the right people all aligned on that vision is so imperative. And, you know, we always say structure first, vision second. And that's a really important factor, right? Because most people think vision first, structure second. Well, doesn't necessarily going to build you a really strong foundation that way. And as a matter of fact, a lot of companies fail because they just have the vision, but they don't have the right people in the right seats. And sometimes I've worked with clients where they actually find out, the owners find out, they may not be in the right seat. They might be the core values, but they're not in the right seat. And sometimes I have to point that out. And that's not always the easiest thing for them to realize. But as you know, as I probably said it 10 times that day, the greater good of the organization. That's what we're all about, is it's the greater good of the organization. And once you get that through to people all of a sudden, they get it. I'm not criticizing you because you don't have these core values. Let's work on these core values, because these are the minimal acceptable standards, the bar that you need to be able to be in our organization. And it's really not fair for someone, if they don't fit your values and your culture, then they're struggling with it. And they're struggling every day with it. You know, let them find another organization where they do fit in. And I think that's one of the key factors. You know, after hiring thousands of people myself, I always hated to fire people. Always hated to. And when I did, people would literally come up to me and go, Dan, why didn't you do this a year ago? Right? Like, how did it take this long for you to figure this out? And I always thought I'd give people the benefit of the doubt. Well, they were struggling along with everybody else. So it's the greater good of the organization.
You know, I'm actually a little bit surprised to hear you say that some people didn't realize that the founders or the owners or the leadership team themselves are in the wrong seat. Honestly, kind of going through this exercise makes it obvious that you wouldn't even have to point it out. I know that in our case, that's exactly what happened. And while this wasn't part of Vision Building Day 1, this was part of the focus they already touched on. I feel it's relevant to touch on it here. Is traditionally the way that we've done any kind of, you know, organizational charts or accountability charts always started with a name. It always started with John. This is John's position, and this is what John does.
Right.
And then you break out this structure. What you're prevented from doing is, first of all, you're missing any gaps. Yes, John does this and Mary does this, but in between them, nobody's doing this, and you don't see it because on a list, it seems like everybody's doing everything they're supposed to.
Exactly.
More importantly, you're seeing what they do, not necessarily what the company needs for them to do. So I think for us, going through that exercise and writing out an accountability chart and stopping ourselves and forcing ourselves to not put a name there, because every single time we went to the next tier, it started with a name. Deleting that name, writing out a function. In this exercise, one of the first things I learned was that I myself was in the wrong seat, which was a surprising part that you mentioned. You had to point that out to someone. I think when you write it out on a piece of paper and you look at what you're doing, and you look at not even what you're doing, you look at what the role entails, you start to realize that this is either yours or it's not. You're either passionate about it and great at it, or you're not. Yeah. And that's what I realized, is that a lot of the operational duties that fell, you know, if I was doing the organizational chart with my name first and wrote out all the things that I do, half of them I have no business doing whatsoever. And there were a bunch of other functions throughout the organization that I had no business letting go of. That's exactly where I myself should have been. And I think shifting those around first and foremost allowed us then to get the clarity of, well, what is the rest of the organization doing? and aligning around that. And we had, in our initial rocks that we went through before our focus day, we had 3 key hires that we had to make. As a result of the organizational chart, realizing that we are not where we need to be, as a result of the core values exercise and putting those down on paper, but primarily, and they had to work in concert, was the core focus. Once we defined our core focus and then went back and looked at our organizational chart and our accountability chart, we realized that the last 3 people we needed right now to hire were the very 3 that were our biggest rocks for Q2. Those are 100% the wrong people to have hired, because we would have hired over our own strengths instead of over our weaknesses. We would have hired things we had in the organization already. We just thought we needed more of it without solving the very problems we actually had. And while this is not a resume building class or a job post writing class or any of the above, the result of that last vision building day was I wrote the best job description I think we've ever written in the 10 years we've been in business. It is extremely succinct. It makes all the sense in the world. But then the result, we put it up on Indeed. And Indeed is an advertised platform. You promote your posts and so forth. And with the promoted post, I forgot what it told me, but with the budget that I put in, it told me I was going to get somewhere around 30 to 40 candidates over the term of my promotion. As of this morning, we were at 174 candidates. So obviously, the way that we were able to put it together really resonated. It made sense. And out of those 174, I think right now I'm at about 12 to 13 that I was able to identify that are going on to the next step. The beauty of it is, A, if we didn't go through all this, we probably would have hired the wrong people, and that would have been a disaster to begin with for the wrong roles.
Expensive.
B, expensive and just a lot of time lost. B, I don't think we would have gotten the same pull through from our Indeed post that would have been, really parsed down. But the most important thing is half of them would have looked good to me. And I would have been looking at it, and I would have had, in the case of 174, I'd be looking right now at, 85 people, 87 people that I have to weed through. I don't.
Right.
I was able to, at a cursory glance of their resume, right away see fit or no fit for the next level. Now we're going to talk to them, we're going to get deeper into values, and I think this is probably going to be our best hire we've ever had coming up in the next couple of weeks. And that's thanks to this exercise, and my interview is going to have that people analyzer in front of me, where we are going to gauge exactly on that. I think it's going to really kind of drive the boat for that interview prior to even getting into specific experiences or skill sets, because if they get it and if they want it, then we'll see if they have the capacity to do it. As opposed to always starting out with the capacity. They're the best people in the world. They're the most qualified. They know exactly how to do it, but they're just not something they want to do or willing to do or willing to do it in any kind of organization that we have. So that's been, I don't want to say for us, it's definitely an unintended consequence to this. We didn't intend for this to help us hire.
And do they fit your core
values? We
values?
intended for this to help us. Yeah. And then that's not, we were looking at this whole exercise as how do we look inwards and how do we optimize it? We didn't realize the impact it would have on our existing team and on the scale of our team. So that's been phenomenal. And I'm sure many of your others, kind of your clients, also experience a similar transformation.
Yeah, I'm working with, well, they're not a startup anymore, but 7 months ago, there was a startup, just 2 people, 2 guys, that's it. But we built the structure for, they were going to hire 18 people within the next 6 months. And matter of fact, I was just talking to them today, and they literally are amazed because we built out that accountability chart 6 to 12 months out, and they were ready to hire people right away. And of course, using the core values and the people analyzer and the GWC, they hired the right people. Because that's the worst thing you could do is hire, someone to bring in a high level at your leadership team that doesn't have your core values and just doesn't fit in. And it's like just trying to cram them in and fit into your organization. And, you know, they might be great for 60 days and then poof, all of a sudden, it's just, what happened to that shining star? They just fizzled. And that's what happens. And I think as I told you the first day we met, you and your team, I said, no, don't be surprised here, because EOS has a way of smoking out the people that shouldn't be in your organization. And it really, really does. Because the people that don't have your core values and GWC it, they shouldn't be there. That's really the bottom line. Now, I don't make the choice like that, right? I don't ever tell you to don't hire this person or fire that person, but it makes it very obvious with the tools that we use that they're fitting or they don't fit.
No, that definitely brings it up to the top. It brings it up to the top, and you know what the benchmark is. You know if somebody's succeeding or failing. You know, going back to science class, if you don't have the right hypothesis, how will you know if your experiment failed or not? I think this is a hypothesis. You know, before that, you keep, exactly like you said, you keep trying to make them fit, and they're not good at this, so let's move them over here. Let's see if they'll excel here. And you do this, and you're not doing them any favors or yourself. It's you know, people can still grow within an organization and take on other roles and do other things, but they have to fit the initial role that they came in for. They have to be in the right seat, because if they're not in the right seat there, playing musical chairs is not going to solve the problem.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I want to add to that, and just to clarify, if people have your core values, right, but they're in the wrong seat, then hopefully you can find another seat for them that they fit. But if they don't have your core values, then there is no seat available. That's pretty much the way. So sometimes you find people, they're in the right, I see this all the time, and it's usually the sales seat. The salesperson is one of those people that they just sell, they always meeting their goals, but they don't have the core values. And I always tell people, I said, that's an issue. You do what you want, but that is gonna be like jumping off a cliff at some point in time. And it's better to part ways now. They might be in the right seat, but they just are not the right person. They don't have the core values.
No, I couldn't agree more. And without the core values, it's very difficult to align on a core focus, because if you have a different vision and what you believe in and your method of getting there, what you believe you have to get there, it's very difficult to actually align on a singular focus and do it collectively.
Yeah, okay, so I would love to hear your core values, because I felt nailed them, and just powerful too. And when we left, I mean, people, you were so excited. You were just had the biggest grin on. So I think everyone loved to hear what we came up with.
So for the core values, our 5 core values are never be satisfied. And that really ties into our entrepreneurial spirit. And then the reason that we want to work with other entrepreneurs or people that come from a startup, an agency mentality, because they're always looking how to improve whatever exists. I know that in a lot of corporate organizations where there's a lot of bureaucracy, it's a track to get satisfied. It's, you know, this is what you have to accomplish, and as soon as you accomplish, stop immediately. Who we are as kind of my partner and I, and what we promise to our clients and what our clients expect from us, is that we are always going to be looking for the next best thing. Is that we're not going to stop at simply, we finished it, we're going on to the next one. If there's a way that we can improve it, we want everybody in our organization to be looking at things the same way. Yes, it's done, or yes, we have a path to getting it done, but how can we bring a little bit of ourselves into it and make it just that much better? So that's, I think, our primary core value. And actually, I don't know if you recall or not, but that's the one that I fought the hardest on being on that list of top 5. Yeah. And through this exercise, I realized when we went full circle, not only does it not belong on the off list, but it actually spearheads our values and became the first one that really drives who we are as a company. The next 2 are own your stuff and know your stuff. We are not an organization of shifting blame. I didn't get it done because I didn't get it from him. Right. Own it. If it's your task, find a way to do it. in just our business journey in general, one of the things that I did a while ago is I went and I got certified as a Agile Methodology. Forgot what it is. I think it's a project owner, something along those lines, but it's Agile Methodology. And one of the things about Agile Methodology and why it works so well for development teams is because you have a fully capable team. You don't have anybody to blame. You get a project, you can't come back at the end of your 2-week sprint and say, we didn't deliver it because somebody failed. You should have never started it to begin with. Everybody on your team you have all the resources you need to get stuff done. We want everybody on our team to look at every single thing they do in the same light, we want them to own whatever they do, and we own it. We don't blame the client, we don't blame our team, we don't blame vendors, we don't blame COVID or anything else that's happening. If we take it on, we're going to get it done. Know your stuff really fits well into that, because if you don't know what you don't know, it's going to be difficult for you to own it and get it done. So we are methodical about understanding not just our craft, but also our clients. Whenever we bring on a new client, we spend at least the first couple of weeks, if not a month, digging in. And the beauty of our team is that we have a very multifaceted experience, and we have somebody on our team that's been in an industry that we're working with. And typically, because we're so hyper focused on the specific industry, we ourselves have a lot of experience there. But experience is one thing. That's what happened in the past. It's just as important to know what's happening in the future. So we take a deep dive into who our customers are, who their competition is. We set up Google alerts on their competition. So if anything is coming out about them, we want to know about it first. We want to know about it before a client knows about it. So we know not just what they're doing, but what the whole sector industry is doing. So knowing your stuff is really important. So the fourth core value is speak up. I think I was the one that actually contributed that one. I think out of the 5, that one came the most for me. One of my biggest gripes in general is when people don't say what the problem is up front. When they take on a task and then they come back to you and they blame a million different things for why they couldn't do it, when they could have just told you up front that it can't be done, that timing is not there, that it's going to take longer, that their knowledge is not there, that the customer is not support, whatever the issue might be. It's those people that sit back and don't speak up and let issues fester, and then it turns into an issue for the entire organization. So it's super important for us that everybody speaks up, and for that to be communicated to everybody, that they shouldn't be shy about speaking up, that if they have something to say, we're an organization that wants to hear it. We are a small enough business, and I think any business, small or large, needs to have that culture of speaking up. We don't have the layers of bureaucracy, and everybody has a voice, and we really needed to communicate that to everyone and make sure that everyone speaks up. And it's done wonders. That person I told you about earlier, where there was some misalignment on values, that was actually one of the bigger ones, is that there were a lot of missed deadlines. There was a lot of questions that came up on due dates because they were afraid to ask earlier, worried that somebody was going to question they understood, they didn't understand, and so forth and so on. And just instilling that value, which they already had, it just maybe they didn't feel that we shared it with them. But by being able to voice it and allowing them to speak up has fundamentally changed the role they play within the organization and the service we're able to deliver to our clients. Because now they're able to speak up, ask those questions up front, question deadlines, and make sure that we're all aligned.
You just brought up a fantastic point, is that, I don't want to give people the wrong idea that if people don't fit your core values, off of their heads, out the door. No, you got to tell them what they are. People in most organizations, they just don't know what is important, the values. And so like you just said, because you told them, hey, this is our core value, they stepped up, and now you're aligned. That's the key. That's the key. Now, if that person, after 4 or 5 times, whatever, you keep telling them, well, then you're going to see that's an issue.
100%. That's what I was saying, that I think this has more impact on getting an existing team aligned than even on hiring a new team. Not everybody's going to go out and hire a new team, but existing team, oftentimes they don't know. They know what's expected from them job-wise. They know what, what their KPIs are and what their job description is. Even though that might be a problem in itself, you might have not positioned a job description
Yeah,
correctly.
usually
But
it is.
that's a separate conversation. But not knowing what's the right thing to do within an organization. Many organizations don't have a speak up culture. Many organizations have a I told you culture. We don't. We never did. But I could see how it might come across that way and so forth. So I think being able to voice that and discuss it and for everybody to understand what that value means to us, I think it made it a lot easier for everyone. And that one was one that everybody kind of really latched onto. We could speak up now. Everybody spoke up, which has been great, which has been tremendous all around. It's been tremendous. And if speaking up was the problem that was causing, a lot of the other issues, then that got solved. And if that wasn't it, then now they're just speaking up, but the other problems are still there. Now we know that it wasn't a question of limitation of us not, voicing our values.
Yeah.
So it did the job there. And then the last one, the fifth one, and also a super important one. And I say super important about each one of them because they're really,
you said, they all are.
But being nimble, we work with clients. We help our clients realize the ideas that they haven't been able to realize, whether it's because they've been too busy in their business to really even take that 30,000 foot view and see what ideas they have. They had an idea 20 years ago that got them to build this great business they have, but they stopped having ideas 10 years ago because they've been working in their business. Or they have great ideas, but they don't have the time, the people, the resources, or even knowing where to start on certain things that are outside of their comfort zone. Where we come in is we solve that problem. So everybody on our team has to be nimble. We have to be able to try ideas. We have to be able to pivot. We have to be able to collect, gather feedback, and we have to be able to adapt with the times, with the industries, with our clients. We can't have anyone in an organization that says that's the way we've always done it. That's not acceptable. Because for a lot of our clients, they've never done it. So, you've always done it this way, we've never done it that way, and there's an instant disconnect. So everybody has to be nimble. And if you don't have a solution or you don't know exactly where to start, keep looking, keep trying, talk to other team members and find a way. Don't get pigeonholed into that's the way I've always done it, or this is my plan for the next 90 days and I don't care, come hail or hot water, I'm doing it. We can't have people like that on our team. And we've had that was another one of the things that we had to correct was we had some people that gave us pushback oftentimes and didn't deliver, not because of them, but because of us, because we laid out a plan and we never properly communicated this plan is not set in stone. Don't just keep doing the tasks because of the tasks in front of you, but look at the tasks and see how they fit in the context of the overall organization and what we're trying to achieve. And again, voicing that has helped us a tremendous amount. So those are our core values that have started to shape who we are.
That is fantastic. And that's just the surface of where our journey's headed. And the next thing we did is we talked about our core focus. And
that was a biggie for us.
Mm-hmm. And that was great. And I'll just kind of define core focus. So the core focus is really the two areas. It's your purpose, your cause, and your passion. And I like to say that's the why you do what you do, right? It's why we do it. The niche is the second component, and both of them put together the core focus, and that is the what you do, right? I mean, it's that simple and it's that easy and should not be more than a couple sentences. Less is more. If you could nail it all in a sentence, it'd be great. But when you can communicate and you as a business owner know what you do and the why you do it, it's just so powerful. And some clients I've worked with is they've literally had a few core focuses, a few divisions, and they realized that, hey, those other divisions don't fit into what we want to do. As a matter of fact, it really drains us mentally and, cash flow and everything. And I've had people that actually either quit or sell other parts of their businesses because did not fit what really was their core focus. And I think there was some revelations in our vision building day one for you and the team once we nailed what the true core focus is.
And that's exactly what happened to us. Is once we started to look at the why we do what we do, a lot of the what we were doing made no sense at all.
Yeah.
It didn't fit into the why. You know, I almost felt like we were doing a bait and switch on ourselves. This is why we do it, but then let's go do all this other stuff to look busy. And we got rid of probably about 70% of what we did. 70%. And you know, one of our initial problems when we just met, we talked about what are our problems and what are our rocks.
Yeah.
And the problems we were trying to solve was that myself and my partner, we were entirely too bogged down with a lot of the processes. We didn't have the time to focus on some of the other things that were important, which happened to be the whys. And our key three hires were to hire more of us, essentially, to work on those things that we didn't have time to necessarily, to get to take off our plates. What we realized in the core focus exercise was we didn't need to hire people to do those things. We needed to stop doing those things. Those things weren't really our strong suits. They were there to support what we were doing for our true why. And the what people, there's people that are much more qualified to do it. Much more qualified, are able to bring better results because we no longer have to have a part in it. And and a great example of that is, we are a marketing agency. And years ago, I'll even go a little bit further back, but about 10, 12 years ago, when everybody started needing a website. When they needed a website, the first person they called was their IT person, the person that made sure their printers were printing.
Yeah.
That was the person they called because of a logic. Well, he does computers. The website is on a computer. He must be good at computers. As ridiculous as that sounds, now, if you talk to any IT guy that was an IT guy, anywhere starting in 2000 through 2010, those were the questions they were getting. And a lot of them, because essentially money was being thrown at them, would take those jobs and would take those websites, and those were never successful projects.
Right.
And they lost focus on IT and so forth. What ended up happening with us about 5 years ago was repeating almost that same mistake. Is we could have been doing something for a client that's marketing and sales related and it's front facing, but now they needed a system to support it behind the scenes. And suddenly we started building out a software development team to develop software. We bring no value to the software development cycle at all. But now that we were involved, we had to spend time on it. We had to spend resources on it. We had to hire people, house them, and so forth. So when we cut it off, and we cut it off years ago, but when we cut it off, the explanation of cutting it off was the only thing that I brought to our development arm of our business was the markup. That was really the only thing that I brought to it. Is I was able to take a product which was done for $100 and I marked it up to $120, because outside of that, I accomplished nothing in value to bring to it. Here, it wasn't quite as extreme because we were bringing value to it, but it wasn't what we are great at doing. It wasn't the value that we bring to our clients. It definitely isn't the why. It isn't why we get up in the morning to do what we do.
Yeah.
So getting rid of those services now allowed us to, first of all, widen our reach. We could now work with more people. It's not just people on our team, but now we have a litany of vendors. And some of the people that were on our team have become now independent contractors with us. And they're all that much happier for it. They're able to do other things while focusing on the stuff that they love to do with us. And we are no longer marking them up or selling their services, but we're utilizing them to achieve the common goal that our clients and us have. So just getting rid of all of that suddenly freed up a lot of our time to focus on what we needed to focus on. And we no longer need to hire those people to take those things off our hands. We just don't need to do them in the first place. And one of the books that you made me read, The Good to Great, it talks about that hedgehog concept and how you should Really identify what is it that you can do where you will be the best at the world at it. And all those other things weren't it. So this has allowed us to focus in on what we're really great at doing. And every single example that's brought up in the Good to Great book talks about exactly that, is where businesses went wrong. It's when they started getting into other industries that they had no business getting into, that it wasn't the natural expansion of what they were doing, but it was diversification for the sake of diversification, not for the sake of growth. And I feel like a lot of what we were doing was exactly that. It was just trying to capture more of the pie without focusing on the piece of the pie where we brought the most value. So going through those core values allowed us to get rid of 70% of what we were doing, hone in on the 30% that we should be doing, put together the value proposition. And that was another one of my biggest problems over the years, was we were so broad in what we did that I couldn't come up with an elevator pitch. I mean, Sears Tower elevator pitch at best. The where you have your 3 or 4 minutes, maybe I can do that. But for a short elevator ride, I couldn't even get into that conversation. Now I'm able to deliver in 15 seconds flat exactly what we do and why we do it. And I don't have any more questions. And like I've mentioned to you, our conversion has gone up. We're bringing on, I don't want to say better clients, but a better fit client, a client that we can deliver better for, and a client where we bring instant value because they get what it is that we do. And before that there was a disconnect. And getting what we do was great, but then voicing it, and that's where the niche came in, is being able to voice it. And this is essentially how we do it. And this is what makes us different. This is how we're going to do that thing that we promised you we were going to do. This is what we're going to use to get there.
Yeah.
And this exercise has been pivotal all around. I mean, just to, I guess people like numbers, so I'll put some numbers behind this. But since our Vision Day building one, we have experienced 100% growth in our business from a standpoint of number of clients.
It's amazing.
Revenue numbers might not be there, but it's irrelevant revenue. It's making revenue just for the sake of revenue. We got rid of all the items that were revenue for the sake of revenue. And now it's actually, what is the company making? What is our, the net of it? And the net has improved. While the gross hasn't, we were more focused on growth that we didn't need to keep everyone busy, to keep all these people busy instead of actually delivering to our clients. More importantly than that, even though that one is 100% growth in the last month.
Pretty good.
I'm not, if we could keep that up for a couple of months. But more important than that is how we're able to do it. I've always known what I want out of life on a personal level, and as has my partner, but those weren't the objectives. The objectives were always, well, we're going to do this until we're able to do that. We're going to do this work thing, and we're going to work hard and deliver so that one day we'll be able to do the things that actually are meaningful to us. And this has changed that completely. Now that we're no longer doing busy work, and now that we're doing the work that we're meant to do, we were able, and creating this process from the ground up, essentially, allowed us to create it around a lot of lifestyle choices that we're making too, that allow us to do a lot more of this work remotely, that allow us to spend more evenings at home and more weekends and so forth. But being able to now build this process together with who we are as human beings, as parents, as husbands, as wives, and so forth, and how do we make that work with who we are as business people? And I think that misalignment, I read a book a while ago that talked about the fact that there was an employer, and he wanted all of his people to never work more than 40 hours. He said that, some people hire, are you willing to work nights? Are you willing to work weekends? Are you willing to give it all you got? And then he realized that he was getting completely the wrong people, because the people that were there for 12-hour days, 15-hour days, burning the midnight oil, no reason, no one trying to achieve something so they can go do something else. They were there for the sake of being there. Once he started hiring people that are only able to work 40 hours because they have a life outside of those 40 hours, those 40 hours became so meaningful. They were so focused on what they needed to achieve in those 40 hours. So that they can have a life outside of it. And he got a completely different set of people and a completely different set of results. And I think that was one of the most meaningful changes out of all of this, is once we realized what it is that we are really good at and where we bring the most value and why we get up in the morning and why we started this in the first place, it now allowed us to build it into a system of kind of a much more holistic system of the way that we live and work. And those have been the changes from Vision Day Building 1. I can't wait for Vision Building Day 2. Can't even imagine what's going to happen then. But definitely transformational.
That is totally transformational, just through core values and core focus. Just answering the 2 out of the 8 questions. It sounds like it's just been a life-changing event. And me as your implementer, that's my focus. I add value. And when I hear those things, it just makes me so happy, because that's what gets me up in the morning. That's my why. And it sounds to me also that by focusing it, you were going to hire 3 people, and in your industry, hires in that space are not inexpensive. And you would have had them probably for a year or whatever, and found out, wow, this is not right, and spent all that money. But mostly all that time that you probably would have been able to spend with the family and doing all the things that you want to do, go mountain biking, ride your motorcycle, go kayaking, all that good stuff. So it is amazing when people really get their core focus as fast as you do, or as fast as you guys did, and really what it does. And not only so that the organization, everybody now knows this is what we're meant to do as a company. And when someone comes up and says, oh, hey, I got an idea, let's go over here, everybody goes, whoa, no. It's not
and we've done that. And we've done that a couple of times already. And not only that, but I'll even go a step further. We've loved the system of the general structure of EOS so much, and especially the L10 meetings and how it breaks it down and how it makes those 90 minutes, extremely effective. Yeah. We've now applied it. I've applied it to some issues, some, personal life items, but more importantly is we've now applied it to our entire client process. So when we bring on a new client, we go through this exercise, essentially. We go through the same EOS exercise. Our monthly meetings about our client have become IDS meetings, where we identify the issues they're having. We discuss those issues. We come up with solutions, and it's become, we follow that IDS framework. And now in our unique proven process, there's even a couple of steps, which the nomenclature is exactly the same as an EOS, because it made so much sense there. So there's once you start to get, and I realize that at this point, I mean, we're 20% of the way through the 8 questions, but I'm using those 20% that I actually understand to their absolute max.
Love it. Well, I am really looking forward to, we're going to get into the 10-year target when we start in a couple of weeks. And the 10-year target is that North Star of where the company is headed towards. And when we talk about, after that, our Vision Day Building 2, and we have our next webinar, boy, that is just, people are just going to be amazed. But first of all, when you tell someone, we know as a company where we're going in 10 years, they look at you and go, what? We don't even know where we're going in the next 30 days. We don't even know where we're going next week. So it's really powerful. Not only to your employees, but your clients too. Wow, right? You tell your clients, hey, no, we know where we're going in 10 years. We know where we're going in 3 years, next year. It's really great. I can't wait. It's gonna really be a powerful day.
And I'm super excited because, quite honestly, I am one of those people right now. If you ask me right now where we're going to be in 10 years, we're focused, we have our values, but I have no idea. And judging by the experience of the day one, the transformation we made from what we thought we were to you asking the right questions and probing, and there were a couple of moments where we were ready to give up. We were not even give up, but we were ready to table it. And I think I even said it a few times throughout the day. Like I think we have I think you're on your second whiteboard at that point of concepts for the values. But I think we have enough to work with here. Let's, we'll go back to the drawing board and kind of come back to you with something. You didn't let that go. You continued probing, and we got to where we needed to get to. And what I'm saying now, a few weeks after that, it's still exactly the same thing. We got to the end result of those. So I'm honest, I'm giddy looking forward to next week to find out where we're going to be in 10 years. And it's not that you're going to tell me, but we're going to raise the right questions and think about the right things to where I think we'll be able to formulate that.
Yeah.
And I can't wait not only to find out myself, but then to go back to the team and to say, all those things that you've been excited about for the last month, well, this is why. I don't think I've tied the bow on it yet. I've tied the bow on it, and this is why, because we're going to be able to deliver better now. But there is no forward outlook on this. So I'm really looking forward to having that forward outlook and to being able to deliver all of this that much better, to be able to deliver a better service, a more focused service, better allocation of our time to spend on the right things where we're helping our clients and not creating busy work for ourselves that was just meaningless. And that's been, great. And I'm really looking forward to the next one.
Well, I'm excited because you have no idea what's in store.
I was surprised the first time. So at this point, I won't be surprised. At this time, I'm just excited.
Oh, you will be.
So that's happening, when is it? Next Wednesday, we're going to do this.
I think it is Wednesday.
Fantastic. So I can't wait. And with this, we're going to sign off until the next installment. After we do our vision building day 2, we're going to cover what was discovered, what was unearthed in the vision building day 2. Dan will talk about more specifically about 6 out of the 8 questions that we didn't touch on today. And then we're going to continue doing this. It's going to be a process. So after vision day building 2, I believe that's the next thing after that is going to be our quarterly.
Yep, quarterly meetings every 90 days. And that's how we create that 90-day world. And that's going to be another great webinar.
So looking forward to delivering those webinars, taking us through the annual. And I am confident that a year from now, when we do our annual webinar, we will be completely unrecognizable compared to this today. So it'll be great to see that evolution and to be able to, go back and watch these webinars myself to see our story and to see how it's been applied. And can't wait to share it with as many people as are willing to watch and get as much value out of this as I did. So thank you, Dan, and looking forward to next steps.
Great working with you guys.
Likewise. Thank you. Signing off.